All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. So, in searching for a new deal, Dexter Lawrence put his foot down, and so did the New York Football Giants, which is why the three-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle is now a Cincinnati Bengal. Now, after talks between Lawrence and the Giants reached an impasse earlier this week, the Giants traded him tonight to Cincinnati in exchange for the Bengals' first round pick. This is a situation where, for me, I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised that this move happened because, like I said the other day, if the Giants didn't trade Lawrence before the start of the draft, then the big fella was going to continue to play for them, and they get a new deal done. But now the Giants are clearly going in a different direction, and so is Dexter Lawrence. And like I said from the jump, the timing of this, if you're Dexter Lawrence, was not the best if he was seeking a new deal from the Giants. From the standpoint that you just had your worst year in the NFL. You only had a half sack last season. You have a new head coach for the Giants in John Harbaugh, and John Harbaugh is not attached at the hip with Dexter Lawrence, and of course, so is current Giants GM Joe Shane. Yeah, Joe Shane gave Dexter Lawrence his extension, but he did not draft him. Okay. So at the end of the day, like I said, Lawrence is coming off of his worst statistical season in the National Football League, only a half sack in 17 games played. Okay. Lawrence, to me, I feel his best seasons as a D tackle in the NFL were probably under Wink Martindale when he was the Giants defensive coordinator. You think about the productivity or lack thereof last year from Lawrence. And like I said before, is this a harbinger of things to come? Are his best years behind him? Or was last year simply a fluke? I mean, we have a scenario where the Giants are not good defensively last year. It was supposed to be a strength. The Giants really struggled stopping the run. And honestly, the Giants have struggled to stop the run for the last 5 years or so. But nonetheless, you look at it and you ask yourself, do the Giants really have themselves a hole at defensive tackle? And again, like I said, they struggled to stop the run with Dexter Lawrence. And here's the thing that's really interesting because the only team that was worse than the Giants last year as far as stopping the ground game was the team that the Giants has traded Dexter Lawrence to, Cincinnati. So it's going to be interesting to see how this thing works out. Now, in exchange for Lawrence, the Giants are getting the Bengals' first round pick, which is 10th overall. And now New York is heading into Thursday's first round of the draft in possession of both the 5th and 10th picks in round number one. Now, in my opinion, okay, I do not see the Giants replacing Dexter Lawrence in round number one. I don't think that they go D tackle with either the fifth or 10th selections. I could possibly see them addressing that need maybe on Friday night in rounds two or three. Or here's an interesting scenario for me because I feel like the Giants could go in a lot of different directions or several different directions, at least in the draft. You have the 5th and 10th pick. If you're the Giants, you could go defense right here. You could go with a pair of Ohio State standouts, and I'm talking about Sonny Styles at linebacker, and of course Caleb Downs, the phenomenal safety. Or could we see the Giants use one of those draft picks and use the other one to trade down to get even more draft capital? I say this because there's always going to be a desperate team looking to move up in the draft, especially when you start to have a run on a certain position. Okay, so you never know what's going to happen. That first trade during the draft can always trigger multiple trades behind them. And if you're the Giants and now you have two draft picks, and if you're not, if you're not trigger happy to pull to make both of those deals happen, make both guys become Giants, you could trade down, get more picks for this year and even more picks for next year. Because remember, the Giants don't have. I said second and third round. where they could fill a need for D tackle. They don't have their third round pick after they made the trade last year with the Houston Texans to move back into the first round last year to get Jackson Dart. So nonetheless, there's a lot of different ways that I could see the Giants going here. Now, from the Bengals standpoint, they're hopeful that they just beefed up their defensive line, but guess what? It came with a hefty price tag if you're Cincinnati because you gave up a first round pick for Dexter Lawrence, 10th overall. Okay, on top of that, you still got to turn around and pay Dexter Lawrence. And this is a tricky thing for me when it comes to Cincinnati. They didn't pay Trey Hendrickson, okay, one of the best edge rushers in the National Football League. He's now a Baltimore Raven. And you've tried this offseason to replace Trey Hendrickson on your defensive line, if you will, by signing Jonathan Allen, by signing Boye Mafe off of the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. And then, of course, now you traded for Dexter Lawrence. And in the process, you gave up your first round pick. Now, here's the other thing, because I don't see a D tackle, in my opinion, okay, I don't see a D tackle in this draft that's going to go top 10. I could totally be wrong because there's always going to be a team or teams that make a reach in the NFL draft to try to fill a void. But nonetheless, if you're Cincinnati, you got to say, well, you know what? You're clearly saying there's nothing in this draft that is better than Dexter Lawrence. But what does Dexter Lawrence do for you? Because he's not going to get after the quarterback like that. And like I said before, even with him at D tackle, the Giants have not been successful in stopping the run. And again, the only team that was worse than the Giants last season at stopping the run are the Cincinnati Bengals. So if you ask me who won this trade, on April 18th, I'm going to say the Giants because if you're John Harbaugh, you're trying to put your foot down and you're trying to establish your new system, your new way of running things as the head cheese, if you will, for the Giants. You don't want unhappy campers there. Okay. And it's one of those, again, like I said before, John Harbaugh is not attached at the hip with Dexter Lawrence. My other thing is this in trading Dexter Lawrence. Okay, he's been a staple for the Giants for quite some time. Arguably, I think the longest tenured Giant currently or was. But honestly, what have the Giants won with Dexter Lawrence? And honestly, they weren't any closer to like improving with Dexter Lawrence now than they were for the past couple of years. And again, if you're Cincinnati, you just gave up a first round pick for him. And I feel like, and this is my opinion again, you give up a first round pick for a player when you feel like you're a player where you're a player away from making a run. The Cincinnati Bengals are not a player away from making a run. And at this point, I don't see Dexter Lawrence being that impact player that the Cincinnati Bengals expect him to be. So, TFX, what's going on, my man? Yeah, you know what? You basically said it. The Bengals got fleeced. But at the end of the day, when you think about dumb decisions over the years, the Cincinnati Bengals almost lead the world in that category because you don't want to pay Trey Hendrickson, one of the best edge rushers in the NFL, and you've basically replaced him with Jonathan Allen, Boye Mafe, and Dexter Lawrence. That ain't going to work. Okay, that's just my 2 cents. And again, not only did you give up a first round pick, I can see if it was a late first, okay, maybe, but you're talking about a top 10 pick. Okay, and if the Giants, really take care of this thing right, okay, they could really come out of the situation smelling like a rose come Thursday night because I think the Giants could use both of those picks, but honestly, at the same token, it would not surprise me to see the Giants say, "Hey, you know what? We're going to take one of these picks and trade down and get more draft capital." Just a hunch right there. I could totally be wrong. You're also saying, well, at least Shane isn't picking. Hey, Myth, what's going on, my man? What's up? How are you doing on this Saturday night? And I'll tell you like this, both of you guys. I wasn't even intending to do anything tonight. Sitting down watching the NBA playoffs, and then when I check my phone, and I'm like, wait a minute, Giants just traded Dexter Lawrence. But I think this right here, this move shows that John Harbaugh is in charge and not Joe Shane because, this popped up, maybe a week or so ago that Dexter Lawrence wanted new money on his deal. And you heard Joe Shane talking about the other day. Well, we want Dexter Lawrence to be here, but at the same time, we've reached an impasse, and you figured maybe cooler heads will prevail. That ain't the case right now, as Dexter Lawrence is an ex-Giant. And I tell you like this: he still had money on his deal, but it wasn't guaranteed money. And the thing is, he wanted to be paid like a top 10 D tackle because he had dropped all the way down to the 11th highest paid defensive tackle in the National Football League. But we haven't seen top 10 or top 5 productivity out of Dexter Lawrence um, in the last couple of years. So when it's all said and done, if you're the Giants and you could find a way to get, like I said, to get off of an unhappy camper, then so be it. Now you've got to go out there and make the most out of your additional draft capital. Because, like I always say, draft picks are only good if you know what you're doing with them. So let's see what the Giants do from here. But I'll say this, could the Giants have possibly gotten more for Dexter Lawrence? I think so, because you go back to Quinnen Williams, who was in the same draft class at the same position, who also was in the first round. A first round pick that year back in 2019. The Jets traded him last season to Dallas, and the Jets got Maisie Smith. They also got a second for this year, and they got a conditional first round pick for next year. The Jets are going to get another first round pick for next year. It's just a matter of whether it's going to be Green Bay's pick or Dallas's pick, whichever of those picks are higher. Because remember, Dallas has Green Bay's pick, courtesy of the Michael Parsons deal. So you look at that and you look at the productivity. Quinnen Williams did have more productivity than Dexter Lawrence. You wondered if they could have gotten more. They possibly could have, but again, I think this deal had John Harbaugh written all over it from the standpoint that he just basically said, "Hey, whichever team offers me a first round pick first, I'm going with it," because I feel like if the Giants really wanted to, they could have maybe gotten a first and a third out of this deal. But the fact that they got a first and a top 10 pick at that, if you're the Giants, you have to jump on that. And I think John Harbaugh, at the end of the day, just simply said, you know what? We'll let Dexter Lawrence go ahead and be somebody else's problem. Because again, like I said before, John Harbaugh is not attached at the hip with this guy. So again, if you're John Harbaugh, you had to go out there and make this deal done. Okay. You look at their athleticism that the Giants have at linebacker, and honestly, I think the odd man out there could be Kayvon Thibodeau. If you tell me right now that the Giants trade Kayvon Thibodeau at some point, I wouldn't be surprised, because I think, they clearly want to go with Brian Burns. We know about the season that he had rushing the passer last year for a bad Giants team. They just took Abdul Carter in the top 5 last year. He's not going anywhere. Kayvon could be the odd man out, because, of course, the Giants are going to go to more for 3-4 defensive front 7 under John Harbaugh. So, and we haven't seen the productivity from Kayvon Thibodeau either. Also, you think about the money that the Giants just saved by moving on from I almost said Trevor Lawrence, Dexter Lawrence, another former Clemson guy. But nonetheless, the money that the Giants just saved by moving on from him, so that definitely clears up some cap space for them as well. But again, this was a deal. I feel like it needed to be done. I think it gives a fresh start for all parties involved. Dexter Lawrence can go to Cincy. I don't see the success there, but he's going to, hopefully for his sake, get paid. But now, if you're Dexter Lawrence and his agent, you're relying on an organization like the Cincinnati Bengals, who have been historically bad when it comes to paying players, to now pay you. But at the flip side, Cincinnati basically has to pay Dexter Lawrence, being that they gave up a first round pick for him. And on the flip side, for the Giants, you move on from a player that was disgruntled. You didn't want it to carry over and throughout the rest of your offseason, especially with a new head coach who is trying to establish his system, his culture, his way of doing things. And on top of that, somebody he's not attached at the hip with. Okay, you know what? The Giants were like, sign me up for that. Yeah, listen, TFX, to your point, you're saying Burns is the best defensive player on the G-man. Absolutely. I really want to see what they're going to do, because I think the Giants use the fifth overall pick. Whether that's on a Sonny Styles, whether that's on a Caleb Downs, maybe a wide receiver, because again, Malik Neighbors is coming off of that ACL injury. I could totally, if the Giants go defense with that fifth pick, I would not surprise me to see them trade that second first round pick. Now, if the Giants go maybe offensive tackle there at number five, and we know the Giants have not had success drafting O linemen early in recent years, or if they go wide receiver or another position, then the Giants are definitely going to use that second pick. But like I said before, the ball is in their court right now to come out of this smelling like a rose. And I will say this: Joe Shane to me has not done a good job drafting, but John Harbaugh has been a part of some good first round picks with the Baltimore Ravens. So if you're the Giants, you're definitely hopeful that can carry over. But nonetheless, a fresh start for Dexter Lawrence. And again, like I said before, if you're the Giants, you had to make this move because hey, again, what have you really done with Dexter Lawrence? And honestly, at this stage in his career, we could possibly be looking at him taking a downward spiral. Not a big one, but the productivity simply might not be there. So again, like I said, you're getting off of a disgruntled player. You're moving on. It's Harbaugh's show right now with New York, and let's see if Dexter Lawrence can have some success and rekindle that spark in Cincinnati. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. TFX, Myth, I definitely appreciate you, both of you chiming in. Definitely appreciate the support. And honestly, TFX, you were one of the first people that I thought about when when this deal was announced that the Giants were moving on from Dexter Lawrence. I had a feeling, I'm saying, you know what? I feel like he was going to be happy, especially being that the Giants got a first round pick, a top 10 pick, back for a guy who did not have a great season. So definitely appreciate the support. And like I said, I was thinking about you on this one. Also, for everybody else, if you like what you heard and saw in this podcast, you know what to do. Just hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. And like I always say, it's greatly appreciated. Also, if you are on the X, formerly known as Twitter, you can check me out anytime at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you give me that follow, it will be my pleasure to do the same in return. And that also goes for Instagram, where you can check me out at 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge. Also, if you're on Facebook, folks, definitely be sure to check out the Sports Depot 365. And as far as I'm concerned, one of the better sports groups going on social media. And definitely be sure to stay tuned to this channel all throughout the coming week. I got a lot to talk about for the NBA playoffs, as well as the upcoming NFL draft, and you don't want to miss it. But until next time, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I am signing off, and I'm saying thanks once again for checking out the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Be well, everybody.